Hello, this is the group postmortem review for Team Brawlhalla 2 for their Synoptic project game. I'm just going to start the call by introducing each of the team members and their roles, so beginning with Josh.
I'm the lead artist and team leader.
On to Tom.
I'm doing the programming.
Lewis.
I'm the level designer.
And Caden.
I'm the other artist.
Lovely. So a team of 4 working on this game. Josh, over to you if you could just give a brief sort of 30-second synopsis of your game and sort of the main content surrounding it.
Our game is a puzzle game set in medieval England where an alien invasion happened, and the main character has came across a piece of alien tech taking the form as a sword, but they don't want to use this as a source of violence, so they go around using it as a way to escape.
Okay. If there is any echo coming through my mic, let me know because I can't hear it. And I can just jump on mute very quickly. Lovely. So if you had to describe sort of the main features or mechanics of your game, what would they be?
The main mechanics would be using the sword as like a way to manipulate the environment and create ways for you to get to spaces you wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Okay.
Like
so
using it as a platform. Stuff like that.
platformer aspects and for traversal. Okay. And how would you define the sort of art style of the game?
I'd say the art style is very stylized.
Okay. Lovely. Right. So flashing back to sort of the bare bones beginnings of Synoptic Project, you were all tasked with taking part in a skills test, a role application, to sort of fight and claim a role in your team from a selection of skills. We're going to get some input from everyone here, but were you all happy with the role you were given for the team, for the project, or were you a little bit dissatisfied with the role you ended up getting? Let's start with Josh again.
I did apply for artist and team lead and I got the role I wanted, so yeah, I'm happy.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm very happy. I definitely wanted the programming role.
Cool. Caden?
Yes, the role I applied for, so yeah, I was happy with it.
Lewis?
Well, I didn't apply for it, but I think overall it was alright, and I did alright in the role.
Okay. Did any of you find that you sort of strayed away from the role you were given and sort of dabbled in other areas a little or a lot?
Yeah, I did quite a bit of level design towards like the end half of the project.
Was it expected? Did you enjoy it?
Honestly, I'm not really sure. I half enjoyed it and half didn't, but I think it went okay.
Do you sort of see the value in becoming a bit more multidisciplinary at all?
Yeah, it was definitely helpful.
Cool. Anyone else?
I also had some experience in other roles apart from programming. It was mainly in engine, but I helped with the art stuff. I set up the cell shading, and I also set up the animations.
Okay. How did you find that experience, sort of jumping from programming and blueprinting to sort of developing artistic elements?
I enjoyed it. It was different from what I'd been doing for the majority of the project, so it was just a nice little thing that I could do.
Was there any challenge to it?
A bit. We had problems with GitHub at the end, so we had to redo a lot of the work.
Okay. Caden, Lewis, any input in terms of branching into a different discipline, maybe?
No, I pretty much stayed as an artist, I think, because obviously we had 2 artists, so maybe if we had if we didn't have another role the same as mine, I probably would have had to, do some other stuff.
Okay. Lewis, did you find yourself going into any other areas, obviously given that you wanted to be in a different role to begin with?
I don't think so, really. I think if there was any, it would probably just be landscape painting that I did.
So a bit more sort of level design, trying to.
I mainly just stuck to my level design though. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So moving forward from the role applications, we all got given roles, we all got put into teams, and we all went through the pitching phase, whereby you first started out as individuals, going through the brief, analysing it for key information, coming up with unique takes on how that brief can be interpreted, and moving forward into what would be your group pitch for your chosen idea. How do you guys find sort of the planning and the iteration and the change of, or the coming together of those individual ideas was moving into the group pitch phase?
I think that it was definitely a challenge, but getting those ideas together, going over what each of us had, and then making up something completely new was something we did well at. And, well, yeah, that's about that for pre-production, really.
So with you sort of jumping in first there, Josh, how was there anything from your initial idea that stayed as a part of the group pitch idea?
I think specifically the camera angle that I envisioned was the part that carried over to the whole idea.
Cool. Lewis, what about yourself? How did you find that sort of planning phase from individual pitch into group pitch, and what parts of your game or idea sort of stayed as a part of the final idea?
It wasn't horrible going on to like plan it all, but it was mainly just that half of us didn't know each other, so it was more like getting to know the person and talking about it. But I don't actually know if any of my pitch was used in it because it was so long ago. I haven't got a clue.
Okay, so a good sort of talking point there in terms of sort of saying the team were sort of unfamiliar with each other, sort of leading into the importance of communication. So that first development of the group pitch was arguably the first point of contact you guys had as a team. How did you guys find that or you, Lewis, rather, how did you find the communication was in that first beginning period?
The first, it was really good, yeah.
Was it crucial?
100%.
Was it, was there strong communication? Was there a hesitancy from the team?
No, I think like, every day we had our pre-production, we had our daily meetings, we planned everything out. We had like a good idea for the game. We were all sound and happy with it. It was really good at that, yeah.
Cool. Really positive start. Tom, so have your input about individual idea into group pitch? What stayed? What left?
I don't think anything from my original idea got put into the group pitch.
So was it like a coming together of like a brand new idea as a collective team, or was it?
I think it was. Obviously, it was a while ago. I don't exactly remember, but I think it was just an entirely new idea
That you all had input into?
Yes.
Lovely. How did you sort of find that coming together and communicating and like collaborating to develop a new idea?
I enjoyed it. Getting to work with new people. I didn't get to do much in the first year and even before this project. It's just nice to work with people I usually haven't.
Yeah, so you sort of see the value in meeting new people and understanding people have different skill sets and being able to work with a more dynamic team rather than sticking to your normal friend groups and relying on other people in that sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Caden, your perspective, individual idea, how that transformed into group pitch, and how important was communication ultimately?
Yeah, I think we worked well as in like we didn't really have any like major arguments about like the idea, so that was good. Yeah.
Cool. Was there anything that made it into the group pitch from your initial idea?
Well, I had like a theme of like aliens, so I think we sort of like used that as a bit of inspiration and just like developed it into like what it is now. So yeah.
Okay. Open question to anyone. Knowing what the idea turned out to be and what you've created as a result of it, is there anything that you would maybe change from that initial idea in hindsight? Or is the idea perfect?
There was a lot of problems to start with the idea, which we did change going through. But the main thing was that when we pitched it, it didn't really seem to fit with the brief. So that would be the main thing that we would go back and change.
So just making sure that the client was happy with the idea presented.
Yeah.
Lovely. So moving forward from the pitch phase, we sort of step into pre-production, the big planning phase where you sort of get together, collaborate, get an idea for art styles, get an idea for core mechanics, and sort of flesh out the idea more in a more concrete way. Do you guys see, again, looking back, do you guys see the value and the importance that an adequate amount of time and preparation for planning is in a game like this or in a project like this?
Yeah, I think with the amount of time that we had to prepare all of the pre-production documents, we were able to develop a strong feel for what we were aiming for the game, which definitely helped starting out with production.
Thoughts, Tom?
I mean, yeah, the pre-production stuff, including like all the documents, really important during the production process. There were often times where we would discuss something that we thought we had already discussed. We would just go back and check.
So as you sort of go back as a point of reference.
Yes.
So making sure that the idea was fully fleshed out and concrete was almost like having a safety net in place in case people sort of lost track of what the initial vision was for the game, right?
Yes.
Cool. Caden?
It was very effective for me as well because I used a lot of the stuff like the Art Bible and the GDD for just thinking of designs and stuff. So, yeah.
So how important would you say those sort of documents are, especially for the Art Bible from an artist perspective? How important would you say they are in terms of having a place to play around and experiment with an art style before just jumping into a project and making things?
It's important, because it stops you from making heavy errors deep in production.
Cool. Lewis, your thoughts and opinions
I forgot the question.
on pre-production? Looking back on pre-production as a whole, how valuable was it allocating that time for planning and prep?
Thought it helped a lot overall because we could go back and see our overall ideas, the style and that, and what we wanted and the ideas we had for the game, and what changes we made. But because we changed so much from the start, gameplay wise, it's didn't help much as we went on.
It's an entirely different project,
at the
right?
beginning. Yeah, compared to what we started with, 100%.
Cool. So what value did you sort of get out of it, or maybe some others from the team? Did you sort of heavily rely on the GDD? Were you more making references from the Art Bible? Was the Gantt chart and the schedule of things really, really important for keeping an eye on milestones?
Probably mainly the Art Bible.
Okay.
Just to try and keep in check with what we wanted it to look like.
Cool. Josh, as team lead, how did you sort of find the managing of the team at this point? You're all planning and prepping, you're all collaborating, you're all communicating, but ultimately you've still got milestones and deadlines. So what did you implement or put in place that was providing sort of structure for the team?
Make sure that everyone was on track. I did organize a Microsoft Planner to pretty much add soft deadlines to stuff to make sure that people were getting stuff done in time for the actual deadline of the production phase.
Lovely. Other team members, how did you find that project management sort of pipeline? Was it effective? Was it useful? Was it nice to know what little tasks you needed doing by certain dates?
I mean, the scheduling stuff that Josh had set up was really helpful. I often found myself not knowing what to do after I'd finished something, and I'd just go back to that and check what he'd set me to do.
Yeah, so it's allowed you to sort of have your own ownership and accountability of getting things done by a certain deadline, but then also getting ahead of the curve and being productive with extra time. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Lewis, Caden, either of you two, was there any benefit to that structure that Josh implemented?
100% at the start, yeah. It helped me keep more on track, and when I got the little notifications saying that some work has been marked off for me being done, it was nice to know.
Is it a feel-good feeling in terms of ticking things off a to-do list?
Yeah.
Lovely.
It's
Caden, your
less
input?
to do overall.
Okay, Caden.
Yeah, it helped. Just as a base guide, just for times and deadlines and stuff like that, just help me stay on track.
As the artist of the group, or sort of main artist, lead artist, or one of the two artists, was there an asset list of sorts that helped you stay on track?
Yeah, we had a little asset table with priority stuff on it. Yeah.
So you sort of knew immediately which things you should focus on, which thing was next
Yeah.
in line. Cool. Lovely stuff. Again, sort of open question, open floor to anyone. Do you think there's anything that you missed from the pre-production stage, or anything that you would do better looking back?
No, I think we were essentially perfect, really, in pre-production. There's nothing that I would go back and change.
Everyone agree?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So finishing up pre-production, pushed us into the first of a handful of production stages, alpha production, where your ultimate aim was to produce some sort of functional prototype to showcase feasibility of your project, your idea. Again, looking back, did the alpha prototype include everything that you had planned for the game? Was it functional? Was it very, very broken? Was there any big changes that you sort of needed to make because of these issues that were found?
The main thing in Alpha was that the combat was really, really janky, which was the main point of change throughout the project, was pretty much scrapping that. But we thought that it would be a good idea to include that, which we would build on later through the project to make it a lot more improved, obviously, than the Alpha phase, which didn't end up happening.
Anyone else?
Well, the alpha stage was just the majority. I was getting the majority of mechanics in.
Mhm.
Like Josh said, with the combat, it was not the best. I had planned to. I had planned to improve it in future production. Your mic's echoing, by the way.
Sorry, thank you.
I had planned to improve it, but as we got to our pitch at the end, our feedback was it probably wasn't the best to have combat, which I wasn't happy with, but I understood. Everything else in Alpha was unfinished, but that's just Alpha.
Yeah, so aside from sort of the general expectancies of Alpha not being like a super duper polished game, Caden, Caden or Lewis, were you guys sort of happy with the end result of Alpha? Was it sort of where you wanted it to be, where you expected it to be?
I think it had sort of the core mechanics and just our main gameplay of it. So yeah.
Lewis, what's your input on that?
I think the end of Alpha was actually really good because it was mostly Tom's job to make all of the different mechanics work, and they're all in there working, all the ones we wanted. They're obviously a bit janky in that, but it is just Alpha, so you can improve that after all. But overall, the end of Alpha was really good, yeah.
Yeah, so as a team, we're sort of happy with the end product of Alpha, yeah?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Lovely. moving forward into beta, where you normally had that sort of big visual overhaul. So you had your functionality from alpha, moving into beta, trying to make it look prettier, make it a bit more functional and polished. Were there any big changes that were like obvious and apparent by the time beta was finished?
Compared to the end of alpha, the end of beta was wildly different. It wasn't just a visual overhaul, but quite a bit mechanically as well. Because I spent a lot of time in level design with Lewis trying to come up with ways to use the mechanics that we were going to implement, along with developing the artistic style.
Tom, what's your POV?
Well, obviously, beta was much different from the alpha. Because as I mentioned previously, with the combat being removed, we've had to swap our game from an adventure game with combat to more of a puzzle game, using the sword elements we had said earlier. My majority of the beta was just trying to get those sword mechanics to work, which I believe I've done pretty well.
Good stuff, Lewis. So, what were your contributions through alpha that helped in terms of improving the quality of the project?
Again, like Josh said, we were talking to each other about level design quite a lot because we had like a decent base shape of what we wanted the level to be, but Josh wanted it to be longer, so there was more to do. So it was mainly about figuring out how to extend the level more onto the bit that we have now. So we extended it to a different bit with like all hills and that, and now we have something completely different, but the overall layout's still the same, and I think it's pretty good.
Spot on. Caden, what did you sort of contribute to the team in this stage that helped progress the project?
Well, when we like removed we moved like combat and stuff. I ended up changing a lot of like my designs for my like buildings because like I wouldn't have to make any assets for like the enemies or anything like that. So I like completely redesigned like how I was making like the buildings. So yeah.
Lovely. And as a team, were we happy with where we were at project-wise in beta, or again were we maybe underwhelmed with performance or quality?
I think there was a lot to be improved, and a lot where we could have done better as working together as a team. But overall, it did end up coming out quite well at the end of beta.
I mean, but for beta, well, at the end of alpha, we had the game was basically just a bunch of blocks and then the player running around. When it came to the end of beta, it felt like we had an actual functioning game, which obviously made me a lot more optimistic for the future.
That's great input. Caden, what are your thoughts?
What was the question?
Were you happy with the quality of beta by the time beta had finished?
I agree. It was like our game just felt like a lot more like complete. So yeah.
Lewis?
Yeah, I think we were alright at the end of beta. I think it was mainly just a lot of setbacks trying to figure out how we wanted to change the level, how we were going to get the art style to match more. But overall, it came out really well, yeah.
Yeah, so there's still questions to ask, which is again still expected with a game in production. But a lot of questions answered in terms of what the beta product ended up looking like, and playing like and feeling like ultimately. Which leads us into Gold Standard, which is again just a much shorter period intended mostly for polish. So within this stage, what were those tweaks? What were those polished pieces? What was the main sort of takeaway from the Gold Standard stage?
Most of Gold Standard was spent with us just making the game look a lot better than it initially did, which at that point Lewis took a bit of a back step, which is to be expected since he was just a level designer. But me and Tom spent a lot of time going through free assets as well to implement, since we didn't really have much time to make our own stuff. But yeah, we spent a lot of time polishing to make sure it looked the best we could get it.
Yeah. So, was there any implications of this, like, sort of switch around in approach from the team? Either Lewis or Josh, you can both chime in there. I don't mind.
I'd say that I don't really know, to be honest. I can't really explain it that well.
Okay, well, move to
but
Lewis. Lewis, what were your sort of thoughts on Gold Standard?
I thought Gold Standard was pretty good. Like you said, I took a step back, but I was still trying to help. So I was mainly in Gold. I was still trying to look for more assets to do the landscape painting and the foliage stuff. But then Tom ended up finding a pack of a bunch of foliage things and using them. And then we also put trees all around the world. They got the filter in, which made the game look better. And a lot of it was done without my help.
Yeah.
They did really well, just them two.
Good. So we sort of see a bit more visual immersion of and world building sort of coming into play in the stage, sort of led mostly by Tom and Josh, is what we're saying in this stage.
Yeah, the filter
Right.
completely changed what the game looked like.
Lovely. Caden, what's your sort of take on the Gold Standard stage?
Yeah, I agree. Our art style, just looks loads better. This I finished making a lot of it's smart materials and textures, and our art style just looked way better here.
Lovely. And then sort of rounding off the project is kind of the position we're at now, really, whereby we've put a pin in production and we're now just sort of evaluating and seeing where we're at. How would you guys say communication has been throughout the entire project? Has it been consistent? Has it been really essential? Has there been ups and downs? Has there been no communication? Tell me about the role that communication has played throughout this experience.
I think communication as a whole was okay, but towards the middle half of beta, it dropped off quite a bit from where we were at initially, and that's mostly on my behalf. But I feel like it didn't affect the project too much, but it definitely could have been improved and made the project as better as a whole, the better as a whole.
Okay, and then any other takes? Any other input from you guys?
I mean, yeah, like Josh said, the communication definitely fell off quite a lot nearing the end of the project. We were still seeing each other in person and talking quite a lot in person, discussing the project, but not as much as we were originally. It was mainly more independent work nearing the end.
Cool. So looking back, do we see the importance that communication has within a long-term project?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Looking at communication from another point of view, you guys at several intervals throughout the project had several batches of QA testing, but also several instances of communication, like direct communication and pitching to your client. Lewis, what's your thoughts on why the necessity of having QA testing and having check-ins with your client? Why is that important?
The feedback definitely is the most important bit about it, because it lets you think about changes you can make to your game, how your game feels or looks like to play for other people, and what changes you can make to improve it as a whole.
Yeah, Caden?
Yeah, I would say the feedback as well. We ended up changing a big part of the game, just based on feedback from one of the pitch things.
Lovely. So I'm coming to a close to a degree. How would you guys rate your performance as a team and as an individual? Starting with Josh.
I think as an individual, I did pretty well. Definitely could have been better in some places, but individually, I did great. Working with everyone else, I did less good, but still good enough to where I can appreciate the work that we all did together.
Yeah. Tom?
I mean, as an individual, I feel like I did really well. You're echoing again, by the way.
Thank you.
Um, less so as a group. Obviously, as the programmer, a lot of the start, I was really independent. I didn't have to work together with my team much until nearing the end, when we were putting everything together.
Caden?
Yeah, I think I could like improve more on like more like filling in like the stuff I was doing. Like I had a lot more of the communication like during the start when I was like working like with Josh a lot on like the art stuff early on. But like when I started doing individual stuff, yeah, I started like doing a bit less of like communicating. So yeah.
Cool. Lewis?
I think, and as an individual, I could have done more towards the end because I started like sort of like drop back and ended up like struggling trying to find stuff and that. But at the start, I think I was really good. And then communication, I think at the start we were all really good and like talk to each other loads, like knew what each other was doing. But then towards the end, we sort of dropped back and was doing stuff kind of ourselves.
Yeah, so sort of
And-
splitting and going more down an individual route rather than a
Yeah, because
cohesive unit.
at that point we all like knew what we were doing each day, what we needed to do, and how we wanted to end up.
And a time crunch kicked in, I'd imagine. So because there was a lack of time left in the project, you guys probably fixated more so on individual contributions rather than approaching all of these obstacles as a team in the most strategic manner.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can kind of learn a lesson from that in a sense of proper approach, proper communication, proper collaboration will allow you to overcome an obstacle in a much more optimal fashion than it will just headbutting your wall, your head against the wall, trying to tackle a problem solo. And then, so last question, pass it around everyone. What do you think is the biggest lesson you have learned as a result of this Synoptic project experience?
For me, definitely the importance of communication and having all of those documents there to be able to check up on. Because like I said before, with it falling off near the end, the amount of work we were doing as a whole definitely reduced, which was a big point of learning for me.
Next.
I just agree with what Josh has just said about the importance of communication.
Be 2 minutes.
Um,
Be done in 2.
yeah.
I'll be done in 2 minutes. That's fine. You can come in if you want. Next.
Yeah, I would say like I would agree as well. Like communicating in like a team helps like just collaborate with each other a lot more. Yeah.
Lewis?
I think that definitely learn the importance of communication, but also like planning and feedback, because it helped us a lot throughout the whole of the project.
Yeah, so I'm just going to pinpoint and highlight that no one here has said, the growth and development of a technical skill is the biggest thing they've learned. And that's probably because this is something that you'll continue to grow and work on and improve continuously throughout the rest of your academic ventures or your professional ventures. And hard skills are something that you guys, you've got down quite well. If you look at the quality of the project, there's definitely quality to be seen. So you guys, from a technical point of view, have done a good job. Where you guys have probably, and you've recognised it in this review, where you guys have probably fallen is sort of that first hurdle of communication, that soft skill as opposed to a hard skill. And that's something that is, something that can make or break a project. So definitely keep an eye on that and make sure it's at the forefront of every group project going forward. And that being said, this brings your group postmortem to a close. Job well done. Make sure this gets onto your portfolios.